They say silence is the language of pain, and in my case, that silence lasted years. People saw me in the hallway and thought they knew my story. Just another girl with autism quietly tucked away in the long-term wing of the hospital. Fragile, unpredictable, easily overwhelmed. What they didn't know was how far someone would go to make sure I stayed that way in their eyes. Her name was Vanessa. She was a nurse when I first met her, fresh-faced and overly friendly, the kind that smiles too wide and listens just a little too closely. At first, I thought she was kind, helpful even. My brother Daniel, who worked in the administrative office of the hospital, met her during a supply order mix-up. He introduced her to me one evening in the patient garden, and I remember that moment so clearly. Her perfume was strong. Her hands were cold, but her smile was warm. That smile stayed with me. It would be months before I realized it wasn't kindness behind her eyes. It was calculation. My brother and I had been close. After our parents died, he took care of everything. My therapy, my placement here, my bills, my visits. Daniel was the one constant in my life. He made me feel safe in a world that often felt too loud, too bright, too fast. But Vanessa saw that bond and saw a threat. I was the only one who stood between her and Daniel's complete trust. She started slowly. Whispered observations, innocent suggestions, little seeds of doubt planted when no one else could hear. Do you think Elena might need an adjustment in her meds? She seemed really agitated today. Should we schedule another evaluation? Always smiling, always concerned, and always lying. And then came the incidents. First, the lights in my room were switched to a type that triggered migraines and sensory panic. The schedule I followed religiously, my only anchor in the day, suddenly shifted without warning. Meals arrived with textures and smells I couldn't tolerate. I started reacting visibly, audibly, desperately. And she was always there, just behind me, just in time, just in front of Daniel. The staff began to make notes in my file. Increased agitation, episodes of self-harm risk, potential psychotic breaks. Vanessa wasn't trying to help me. She was trying to erase me. But I am not what they think I am. I may be autistic. I may be sensitive. But I am not weak. I spent weeks listening, learning, watching. If she wanted to play a game, I'd play, but by my own rules. And when the game finally ended, she was the one screaming in the hallway. Not me. My name is Elena Grace. I am 32 years old, and I've been living in St. Vincent Medical Care Center for the past 6 years. It's not a psychiatric hospital, not exactly. It's a long-term care facility attached to a rehabilitation wing. A place for people who don't quite fit in regular hospitals but aren't able to live completely on their own either. I was placed here after a severe breakdown triggered by sensory overload in the outside world. My autism paired with a history of seizures and anxiety made everyday life dangerous. I needed structure, routine, predictability. The world doesn't offer much of that. But inside St. Vincent's, I could manage. I had my quiet room, my scheduled meals, my therapist, my favorite nurse Linda, who always knocked twice before entering. I had Daniel. Daniel is my older brother. We lost our parents when I was 16 and he was 22. He stepped in like a soldier, took over the paperwork, the hospital visits, the specialists, the guardianship hearings. He was my lighthouse in a storm I didn't even know how to name. And over the years, despite the physical barriers between our lives, he made it clear I was not alone. He worked in hospital administration, not in my wing, but in the main building. We saw each other during meal breaks, family weekends, and he'd always bring my favorite pastries from the bakery down the street. He knew me. He respected my boundaries. He understood the difference between I'm quiet because I'm content and I'm quiet because I'm shutting down. Most people don't. And then came Vanessa. She transferred in from another care center, one of those chain-owned places where the staff change every few weeks. From the moment she stepped into our wing, people noticed her. She was tall, elegant, with sharp eyes and a sharper walk. She had the kind of presence that made people either admire her or fear her, often both. The patients called her Nurse V. She liked that. Daniel met her one afternoon while helping process patient supply orders. She came in asking questions about billing codes and walked out with his number. Within weeks, they were having lunch together, then dinner. Then he was visiting my wing less often. When he did come, she started tagging along. At first, I didn't mind. I even tried to like her. I knew Daniel deserved someone. He gave so much of himself to everyone, especially me. He deserved to have his own life. So when Vanessa smiled too wide or touched my shoulder too long, I told myself it was nothing. When she asked odd questions about my medication or routines, I brushed it off as professional curiosity. But then things started to change. My daily schedule, usually printed and placed neatly outside my door, began arriving late or not at all. My meals, previously tailored to my sensory needs, began including foods I'd long since blacklisted: runny textures, bitter flavors, strong smells. I'd open my tray and immediately feel my throat tighten. The fluorescent bulbs in my room were replaced with a new energy-efficient model. The light had a subtle flicker barely noticeable to most people, but it made my vision blur and my head spin. I reported it to maintenance. They said Nurse Vanessa had signed off on the change for cost-saving reasons. My therapist appointments were rescheduled without notice. My records started to reflect increased agitation and emotional instability. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it. I wasn't even sure anyone would believe me if I tried. And then I noticed Vanessa watching me. Not in the way staff usually do, carefully, respectfully, with a touch of detachment. No. Vanessa's eyes followed me like a scientist watching a lab rat. She was collecting something. Data, maybe. Reactions. Waiting for me to fall apart. Daniel remained unaware. He'd smile when Vanessa joined him during visits. He thought it was sweet that she took such an interest in his sister. He didn't see her subtle dismissals when I spoke. The way she interrupted me. The way she acted like I wasn't even in the room. I tried to bring it up gently once. Told him I didn't feel comfortable around her. That maybe she was too involved. He brushed it off. "She's just trying to help Elena," he said. "Give her a chance." That was the last time I tried to tell him. Over the next few months, my world shrank. I stopped leaving my room unless necessary. I avoided the therapy room where she lingered. I kept to myself, observed, and waited. I could feel something building. A plan. A long one. Vanessa wasn't rushing. She was strategic. She wanted me out, discredited, unstable, dismissed. She wanted to be the only one left in Daniel's world. And the scariest part? She was getting away with it. The first real incident happened on a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were music therapy days, my favorite. Soft acoustic guitar, low lights, no singing, just vibration and rhythm. It was the 1 hour in the week where my brain didn't feel like it was going to break open. But that Thursday, the therapist didn't show up. Instead, a replacement arrived, someone I didn't know. Someone who brought a speaker and played upbeat pop songs at a volume that rattled the windows. Vanessa was standing at the door, arms crossed, just watching. I covered my ears. My chair scraped as I pushed away from the circle. I tried to walk out, but Vanessa blocked the exit and said, "Elena, this is exposure therapy. You'll be fine." I wasn't fine. I collapsed in the hallway minutes later, heart racing, head spinning, body shaking uncontrollably. It looked like a panic attack, but it was more complicated than that. When the on-call doctor arrived, Vanessa was already there, kneeling beside me, holding my wrist, murmuring softly about my fragile condition. She told him I had been regressing lately. "Maybe a full reevaluation is needed," she added quietly. Not realizing I could still hear everything. That's when I knew she wasn't just passive-aggressively hostile. She was documenting me, manipulating how others saw me. This wasn't just gaslighting. It was a professional sabotage. Over the next few weeks, similar incidents started happening more frequently. The lights in the hallway to the therapy wing began flickering. It wasn't constant, just enough to make walking through them a minefield. I began avoiding the wing altogether. Once I asked a staff member if they noticed. They shrugged. Nurse Vanessa said you've been extra sensitive lately. Maybe it's just your perception. Then came the meal incident. My meal plan had been customized by a specialist for years, no mixed textures, nothing overly aromatic, nothing green unless it was steamed. Simple, safe. One lunch, I opened my tray to find raw kale salad with vinaigrette and 3 different sauces over a breaded meat. I froze. The smell was sharp bitter. My stomach turned. I couldn't breathe. Vanessa just happened to walk in then. "Oh no," she said, looking at the tray like it was a surprise. "That's not supposed to be for you, Elena. I'll file a correction." But she didn't. The same tray appeared again the next day, and the next. I stopped eating lunch altogether. Daniel visited that weekend. I tried again carefully. Vanessa's been changing things. I think she's trying to make me look unstable. He frowned. "She told me you've been struggling, that you're withdrawing again." "She's the reason I'm withdrawing," I whispered. Daniel looked tired, stretched thin. "Elena, don't turn this into something it's not. Vanessa is a good person. She's trying." I stopped talking. The staff notes became more alarming. Avoidance behavior, resistance to group participation, increasing paranoia. I asked my primary doctor if my meds had changed. He said no. I asked for a copy of my schedule, and he said it was available through the patient portal, except when I checked, the entries were inconsistent, like they'd been altered. One evening, I woke up to find someone had sprayed a heavy lavender mist in my room. I'm highly sensitive to scent. My head pounded, I vomited. Vanessa was on the overnight shift. No one else had been near my room. When I reported it in the morning, she said I probably imagined it. "It's common in your condition," she said sweetly. My condition. It was always the fallback. My autism, my anxiety, my mental state. And Vanessa. She was just a concerned caregiver trying her best. At least that's what everyone else saw, until the bathroom incident. It happened during a routine visit to the physical therapy wing. I was only there for balance training once a week. Vanessa wasn't assigned to that area, but she showed up anyway, clipboard in hand, saying she was covering someone's shift. I felt a chill the moment I saw her. After the session, I excused myself to use the staff restroom cleaner, quieter, less fluorescent. It was a single stall room, no windows. I left my phone in my therapy bag outside. The moment I closed the door, I heard the lock click from the outside, and then the lights went out. I screamed once, then again. The darkness closed in so fast it felt like I was drowning. I began to panic, pounding on the door, clawing at it, begging. 10 minutes passed, maybe 20. Time warped into something elastic, unbearable. Finally, the lock clicked again and the door opened. Vanessa stood there. She looked down at me, tears on my face, hands shaking. "Sweetheart," she said, stepping inside. "You're having a meltdown over a light bulb." She gripped my wrist hard as she pulled me to my feet. Later, when I tried to explain to Daniel what had happened, Vanessa had already told him I'd had a full-blown episode in the hallway. She started crying about the fluorescent lights again. We really need to consider if she's still benefiting from being in this facility. I could see it in Daniel's eyes. He didn't believe me. He believed her. I spent the next few nights barely sleeping, keeping the door blocked with a chair. My body ached constantly from tension. I was afraid of going to therapy. I was afraid of the lights, the smells, the people. Everything I had worked years to stabilize was now unraveling. And no one, not even my own brother, was willing to listen. Vanessa had won, or so she thought. Because what she didn't know was that I had already begun taking notes of my own. Quietly, carefully, in the language of someone who has been doubted all her life. With precision, with patience, and with time. There's something that happens when you're pushed far enough. At first, you fight back. then you plead, then you go silent. But if you're lucky or maybe just broken in the right way, your silence turns into strategy. After the bathroom incident, I stopped asking Daniel for help. I stopped telling staff what Vanessa was doing. Every time I tried, she'd get ahead of me, twist the story, and make it worse. I realized that the only way out was not through authority, but through control. My first step was observation. Vanessa had patterns. She always lingered longer in certain wings. She always checked her reflection in the same window near the east exit. She used the break room microwave at 2 to 17 p.m. every day. She spoke to people in lowered tones, but often stared too long when they walked away. I started charting her behavior mentally at first, then in a small notepad I kept hidden inside a tissue box. She didn't notice. Next, I turned inward. I practiced staying completely calm even when the lights flickered or my meals came wrong. I practiced not reacting when she brushed past me or when she spoke to Daniel with that fake tenderness. I wanted her to believe she had broken me, that I was giving up. Because people like Vanessa only let their guard down when they believe the threat is gone. Then I began testing things. I remembered something odd from my childhood, an allergic rash I didn't get on a camping trip when everyone else did. I'd picked poison ivy to help make a wreath with my classmates and never reacted. Doctors later said I had some kind of natural resistance to the plant. It gave me an idea. Vanessa had recently started talking to staff about her new diet, boasting about her green smoothies and clean eating. She left her blender at the nurse station. One day I offered to make her one. She laughed. "You can cook now." I nodded and said I'd been practicing in occupational therapy. I made the smoothie carefully: spinach, kale, banana flax, and just a few tender poison ivy leaves. Not enough to kill, not even close, but enough to make her swell, itch, and panic. I made the exact same smoothie for myself and drank it in front of her. 4 hours later, Vanessa was in the staff lounge screaming at Daniel. Her face was red and blotchy. Her hands were covered in welts. She accused me immediately, loudly, violently. She poisoned me. Ask her what she put in the smoothie. Daniel turned to me, startled. I said nothing. I sipped water and looked back at Vanessa with wide, calm eyes. "But you drank it too," he said. "I did," I said quietly. She couldn't explain it. The doctor ruled it an allergic reaction. Nothing more. Vanessa's medical records showed that she'd never reported such sensitivity before. And since she'd approved the smoothie ingredients herself, no formal complaint was filed. Strike one. The next part of the plan took longer. Vanessa had confided in a nurse that she and Daniel had been trying for a baby. She wasn't shy about it either. She made little comments during family days, joked about baby names, made sure I heard. But I knew something she didn't know I knew. Daniel had told me once during a late-night tea visit that Vanessa had a condition that made pregnancy risky. They were putting it off. That meant any test result would be suspect, especially if it came from nowhere. So I bought a few positive pregnancy tests online, had them shipped to Lori, my roommate and closest ally. I told her everything. She'd been watching Vanessa too, and she believed me. She was the one who planted the tests in Vanessa's trash bin during a staff shift change. 2 days later, Daniel found them. They argued, loudly. Staff pretended not to hear, but everyone did. She accused me of planting them. I denied it, of course. Daniel didn't know who to believe. He checked Vanessa's phone while she was sleeping and found nothing conclusive. But doubt was there. I could see it on his face when he passed me in the hallway. The kind of doubt that eats at you. Strike two. Then came the hospital's Remembrance Day, an annual event to honor patients who had passed. It was something sacred to many of us. My friend Sophia had died that year, and I wanted to bring flowers. The ceremony was held in the hospital's main atrium. Vanessa had been preparing for it all week. She wore a white fitted dress, full makeup, perfectly manicured nails. She made it about her like she always did. I brought a bouquet of white lilies and walked past her chair during setup. As I leaned down, I carefully let a small stream of olive oil spill onto the smooth tile near her seat. I walked away. No one noticed. Vanessa stood later during the event to give a short speech. As she stepped back to sit, her heel slipped and she crashed hard. She tried to catch the edge of the table, but her nails snapped backwards. A full glass of cranberry juice tipped and poured down her white dress. The sound of her scream echoed like something out of a horror movie. People rushed toward her. She shoved everyone away and pointed at me. This was her. She did this. I just stood there, shocked lips parted, trembling slightly. Vanessa lunged. She slapped me hard across the face and grabbed my arm. But this time, people were watching, and more importantly, recording. Daniel pulled her off. Staff restrained her. My Aunt Beverly, who had come to place a candle for my mother, ran to me and held my shoulders. Vanessa screamed, "You don't see it. She's manipulating all of you. She's faking it." I didn't speak. I just looked at her and smiled. Her eyes widened. She recognized the expression. It was hers, from months ago. The first time she met me. Strike 3. And just like that, something shifted. People no longer looked at me with pity. They looked at her with fear. After the incident during the remembrance ceremony, things changed, but not in the way I expected. Yes, people started whispering. Staff members who used to ignore me now made eye contact. My primary doctor scheduled a check-in and actually listened when I spoke. A few nurses even apologized softly, as if afraid to admit how wrong they'd been. Vanessa was suspended pending review, but only for a week. I knew that wouldn't be enough. People like Vanessa don't stop when they're embarrassed. They don't reflect, they retaliate. Sure enough, 3 days later, she returned to work. It started small again. The same game. She avoided speaking to me directly, but made sure I heard her when she spoke to others. She's more manipulative than she lets on. She smiled when I fell. Isn't that psychotic? I think Elena needs more observation hours. That week, I saw her in my hallway 3 different times during shifts she wasn't scheduled for. She didn't enter my room, she didn't say anything, she just looked at me from the door and walked away. Daniel tried to play neutral. She said she's sorry for how she handled things. She's under stress. I wanted to scream, but I stayed calm. She's dangerous, I said. She's human, he replied. That was the moment I realized I was still alone. So I made a decision I wouldn't just defend myself anymore. I would dismantle her. I met with Lori and outlined everything. We brought in our secret weapon, Uncle Henry. He was quiet, precise, and deeply skeptical of Vanessa from the beginning. He had been recording parts of her behavior during family visits unnoticed. He started collecting witness statements from other patients. Not just about me, but about what they'd seen and heard her do. I stopped reacting to her provocations entirely. That only made her more reckless. She started coming to my room late at night, jiggling the door handle, whispering insults. She left small items on my pillow. Things meant to trigger me: plastic textures, sharp citrus scents. I documented everything. Then came the most aggressive wave. She called my place of part-time therapy work and told them I had violent tendencies. She emailed Daniel's boss anonymously with accusations that he had forged patient records to protect me. She posted vague messages online. Some people belong in institutions not near sharp objects, never naming me but always tagging the hospital. Daniel's supervisor called him in. He nearly lost his job. That night he came to see me. "I need to ask you something," he said, sitting on the edge of my bed. "Be honest. Did you plant the pregnancy tests? Did you poison her smoothie?" I looked him in the eye. "No," I said calmly. "I didn't." And it was true, technically. Lori had planted the tests. And Vanessa drank the smoothie by choice. I never forced her. I never lied. Daniel nodded slowly. He didn't press. Then he told me something that broke my heart. She did this before, he whispered, with my ex. He went on to explain how Vanessa had convinced him that his former girlfriend was unstable, controlling, jealous. She'd driven a wedge between them until the woman left overwhelmed and exhausted. I think she's doing it again," he said. I didn't speak. I just put my hand over his. For the first time, I felt him truly begin to see. But Vanessa wasn't done. 1 week later, she showed up at my room again, this time pushing her way inside. I had forgotten to lock the door. She was smiling, but her eyes were dead. "You think you're clever," she hissed. "You think this is a game you're going to win?" I stood up slowly. "You should leave," I said. My voice was low even. She grabbed my wrist. Tight. "I know you've been poisoning people's minds," she snapped. "You and that freak roommate of yours. And that creepy uncle." I pulled back. She laughed. "You think your brother's going to protect you? He's too weak. Always has been. I could snap him in half if I wanted to." That was the moment I pressed the emergency button. Security arrived less than 2 minutes later. She was escorted out of the building, ranting the whole way. That night, I filed for a restraining order with the help of my doctor and Uncle Henry. Daniel served as a witness. The order was granted. For a while, things went quiet. Until the blog. She created an entire site devoted to me. Photos, quotes, accusations, fake chat logs. Stories claiming I had tricked the hospital into believing I was autistic, that I had manipulated Daniel, that I was part of a conspiracy to eliminate her from the staff. She called me a diagnosis liar and encouraged other staff members to speak up. Some of them did. A few. Old coworkers, online friends. But most didn't believe her. Still, the site was terrifying. It was detailed. Personal. She posted my schedule, my therapy routine, even my blood type. Daniel contacted a lawyer. So did I. We began building a defamation case. Meanwhile, Vanessa's mental state deteriorated. She was let go from the hospital after she showed up screaming at a staff meeting, accusing 2 nurses of conspiring with me. Her nursing license was put under review. Her friends stopped returning her calls. Her family begged Daniel to drop the case, saying she was having a mental break. Then she broke into my room. It was 3:00 a.m. when I woke up to a clicking sound. She had a key left over from her time on staff. I stayed completely still. She walked in quietly, dressed in black. Her hair was wild, her face gaunt. She had a bag. Inside that bag was duct tape, rope, a knife. I waited until she knelt beside my bed and reached for the tape. Then I hit the silent alarm under my nightstand. The security footage showed everything: her entering the building, creeping down the hallway, entering my room. The knife, the tape, her face when she realized the lights were on and the police were already there. She tried to run. Didn't get far. She was arrested on the spot, charged with attempted kidnapping, unlawful entry, and weapon possession. The restraining order violation alone ensured she wouldn't see the outside world for a while. And just like that, the woman who tried to make the world think I was unstable became a headline. Mentally unstable former nurse caught breaking into long-term care facility. Daniel held me after the trial. We didn't talk, just sat in silence. When the verdict came guilty on all counts, I felt not joy, not even relief. I felt peace, but not for long, because the blog stayed up, and the letters kept coming. Other inmates she'd befriended began sending me threats. One of them, a woman named Nadine, started showing up at my therapy sessions, just watching from across the lobby. She wasn't doing anything illegal, just watching. Daniel hired private security. The hospital moved me to a new wing, and still I couldn't shake her shadow. Because when someone truly believes the world owes them everything, they don't let go, even when they're locked away. The day Vanessa's trial began, the sky was gray, just the kind of gray I liked. There were no reporters, no media vans, just a courtroom full of quiet tension. Daniel sat beside me. He looked thinner than I remembered. I noticed the dark circles under his eyes, the nervous way he kept twisting the ring on his finger. He hadn't worn it since she left, but now it was back. I didn't ask why. Vanessa entered the courtroom flanked by two officers. She had lost weight, too. Her hair hung limp. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on me. She didn't look surprised, just hollow. She mouthed something. I think it was, "You ruined me." The trial lasted 3 days. Vanessa's public defender tried to claim emotional distress. He said she had been provoked mentally harassed by a manipulative patient who used her autism as a shield. He spoke of her work history, her awards, her time with special needs children. He painted her as a burned-out caregiver pushed past her limits. But the prosecution came prepared. They showed the video from my room the night she broke in. They showed footage of her walking calmly through the hall, entering my room with tape and a knife. They displayed the contents of her bag in perfect order, each item individually labeled and placed in evidence bags. They brought in staff from the hospital nurses who had once admired her, now testifying under oath. One said she had overheard Vanessa mocking me in the break room. Another recalled Vanessa refusing to administer proper medication dosages until Elena learned not to be difficult. Lori testified, too. She stood straight and strong. She admitted to planting the pregnancy tests, but explained why. She talked about the gaslighting, the silent abuse. She told the jury what I never could, that Vanessa had weaponized trust in a medical system that so often dismisses women, especially disabled women, as unstable, emotional, unreliable. When I took the stand, I didn't tell a dramatic story. I spoke clearly, slowly. I talked about patterns, about changes in routine, about smells, lights, sounds. I explained how control is safety for someone like me and how Vanessa took that away. I told them I had felt myself slipping, not because of my condition, but because someone else was trying to manipulate my reality. Vanessa's lawyer tried to shake me. He asked about the smoothie, the pregnancy tests. He pushed hard. I just kept repeating I wanted to feel safe again. He stopped after that. Daniel was the last to testify. He told the jury about the slow unraveling, how Vanessa would feed him stories, always with concern in her voice. How he ignored the signs. How she isolated him, made him question himself. How it wasn't until he saw her standing over me, shouting and pointing with that look in her eyes, that he finally knew. She didn't just hurt my sister, he said. She hurt both of us, and she knew what she was doing. Vanessa snapped. She stood up, shouted across the courtroom, called him a liar, called me evil, called everyone stupid for not seeing what she had endured. The judge ordered her removed from the courtroom. The jury took less than 3 hours to reach a verdict. Guilty on all counts: attempted kidnapping, unlawful entry, possession of a weapon with intent to harm, violation of a restraining order, harassment, cyberstalking. At sentencing, Vanessa sat silent. Her attorney requested leniency due to mental instability. The judge ordered a psychological evaluation but added that instability is not an excuse for prolonged organized cruelty. She was sentenced to 5 years in state prison with mandatory psychiatric care. As the bailiffs escorted her out, she turned one last time. This time, she didn't mouth words. She smiled. The same smile she gave me the first time we met. I didn't smile back. Instead, I lowered my eyes and breathed slowly, deeply, like my therapist had taught me. That night, Daniel and I didn't speak much. We sat on the hospital rooftop, wrapped in 2 old blankets from the patient lounge. The city lights flickered below, far away, safely distant. He handed me a mug of tea and asked, "Do you think she'll ever stop?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Maybe not. But I don't need her to. What do you need to stop thinking about her?" We sat in silence after that. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but full of things we'd survived. In the weeks that followed, her blog went down. Her mother tried to reach out once. Daniel blocked the number. Lori moved to a new facility out west. Uncle Henry submitted his recordings to a nonprofit tracking caregiver abuse. I started journaling again just for myself. I still get letters sometimes from people who read the trial transcript and want to share their own stories. Women who weren't believed. Patients who were gaslit by those sworn to help them. People who never got to retaliate who carry the weight of what was done to them every single day. Sometimes I write back, sometimes I don't. Daniel and I are closer now. Not in the way we used to be. We're older, tired, but we understand each other more. He no longer talks over me. He listens, he waits, and I no longer hide how I feel. I let my voice take up space. The hospital gave me the option to transfer, but I stayed. This place is not the same anymore. The fear is gone. The routine is mine again. And Vanessa. She's just a name in a file now. The monster at the end of a long hallway finally locked behind a door she can't open. It's strange what becomes normal after chaos. How silence feels unfamiliar after months of noise. How peace doesn't come as a loud declaration, but as a quiet morning when nothing happens and that nothing is everything. It's been 9 months since Vanessa was sentenced. In that time, I've learned to live again, not dramatically, not triumphantly, but gently. My life now is soft, deliberate. I wake up when I choose not when she rattles my door handle. I eat what I want without checking for triggers planted by someone who claimed to care. I sleep without fear of footsteps in the hallway. I am not the same Elena I was before she arrived. I'm not the same Elena who stared at the ceiling in the dark after she locked me in the bathroom, or who sat curled in the hallway after gagging on a tray of hidden triggers. That Elena was holding herself together with thread. This version of me, she's different. Not unbroken, but reshaped. Calmer, sharper, more dangerous in ways that don't look like danger. People often assume that when the abuser is removed, the story ends. But that's not true, because what they leave behind doesn't disappear. It lingers in the way you check locks twice or hesitate before answering the door. It lives in the instinct to downplay your fear, your intuition, your experience. It whispers that maybe next time no one will believe you either. I still hear her voice sometimes. Not literally, but in the words of others. Are you sure you're not overreacting? Maybe she didn't mean it that way. Couldn't it be a misunderstanding? Those words, even when well-intentioned, feel like echoes from Vanessa. A reminder that people will always be more comfortable with doubt than with discomfort. It's easier to question the victim than to face the violence hiding behind good manners and soft smiles. I work with my therapist now, not just to heal from what happened, but to trust myself again. That's the hardest part, reclaiming your inner compass after someone spent so long trying to convince you it was broken. But I'm getting there. One afternoon, Daniel and I sat on the bench outside the hospital courtyard, the one with the crooked tree we used to climb as kids. He brought sandwiches, I brought tea. We didn't talk about her, not directly. But eventually he asked, "Do you think she really believed what she was saying about you, about everything I thought for a long time?" "I think she believed she was right," I said. "But not because it was true. Because it had to be. For her. Why? Because otherwise she'd have to admit what she did." Daniel nodded. Then he reached into his coat pocket and handed me something. A small stone. Smooth, painted sky blue. On it, in small, handwritten letters, were the words, "You're not what they say you are." "I found it at the gift shop," he said. "Felt like it was meant for you." I carry that stone with me now, in my bag, on the windowsill when I write. Sometimes I hold it during group therapy, not because I believe in magic, but because I believe in symbols. And that one matters. Vanessa still tries to reach me indirectly. A few months ago, I received a letter from someone named KC. No return address. The handwriting was familiar. Inside was a folded page from a hospital magazine featuring an article on caregiver burnout. A single sentence was underlined. Sometimes even the best intentions become cruelty when no one is watching. I didn't show it to Daniel. I didn't report it. I just burned it. I don't need more evidence. I don't need more confirmation. I already know who I am, and I know who she is. I still see Lori sometimes. She transferred to a different facility out west, one with more freedom and fewer rules. We video chat once a week. She's growing herbs on her windowsill. She always asks, "Any ghosts lately?" It's our joke. The ghosts aren't spirits. They're names, people, memories, patterns. No ghosts, I say, just wind. Uncle Henry's videos were used in a national caregiver abuse prevention training last month. He got a thank you plaque. He sent me a picture of it next to his coffee mug and a single line. "You were right." That meant more to me than he knows. Daniel's moved on too. He's not dating, not yet. But he's changed. He's quieter now, more patient. He doesn't interrupt me anymore. He lets silences breathe instead of filling them. I think he blames himself still. But I don't. He loved her. And when you love someone, you don't always see them clearly. He once told me it's hard to accept you were being lied to while you were smiling. I get that now. I also understand something else, something deeper. Vanessa didn't just want me gone. She wanted to rewrite the story, to make me the problem, the burden, the unstable sister keeping Daniel from his best life. And for a while, she succeeded. But the truth is stronger than the story. And eventually, the truth will make itself known, even if it has to crawl out through silence one breath at a time. There's a quote I keep taped on my nightstand now. It's from a book Daniel gave me years ago, one I didn't understand at the time. Now I do. The most dangerous thing you can do to someone who's been invisible their whole life is finally see them. I think that's what happened. Someone finally saw me. And it changed everything. I'm not trying to be inspirational. I'm not trying to turn pain into a lesson. Sometimes trauma doesn't need to be poetic. Sometimes it just is. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. When someone tries to destroy your life by convincing others that you don't know your own mind, don't waste time proving them wrong. Just keep living. Eventually, they'll reveal themselves. And when they do, you'll already be free.